Some seem to think that capitalism is about buying and selling things, using the market as a way of distributing goods from the folks who produce it to the folks who consume it. Markets are indeed an important phenomenon, but they don't have any unique relationship with capitalism. For example, in the American slave South, a different system, a slave system, the goods produced by slaves, for example, cotton, were sold. So you had a market in cotton. You actually had a market in slaves too. So things were bought and sold all over the place. Markets existed, but you didn't have capitalism. You didn't have an employer and an employee. That's the core of capitalism. Slavery is a different system. It's a master and a slave. The master doesn't hire the slave. There's no need. The master owns the slave. In capitalism, the employer doesn't own you. May feel like that occasionally, but he doesn't legally own you. In feudalism, it's yet again different. It's a lord and a serf who kind of belongs on the land, has obligations to the lord, but the lord doesn't hire the serf, doesn't pay him a wage, but there were markets in serfdom. The unique thing about capitalism is not therefore a market. The unique thing about capitalism is the relationship in production, in how goods and services are produced. It's a relationship that is not master-slave, that is not lord-serf. It is a very particular arrangement, employer-employee. And in that relationship lies a fundamental conflict, tension, anger, resentment. Why? Because some people are doing all the work and producing more than they get, a more that we nowadays call the surplus, the extra. And if you're a capitalist, an employer, what of course is your interest? To give the worker the least possible while getting the most out of them, because that's the biggest surplus they can get. And the more surplus they have, the more secure they'll be. In capitalism, it turns out we've got exactly the same kind of system as we had in slavery and feudalism. Why? Because the worker has to produce more, a surplus, than he gets. Just as the master got the surplus the slave produced, or the feudal lord got the surplus that the serf produced. It's nobody's fault. It's the way the system is set up. What's the alternative? When the people who produce the surplus, the workers, are themselves the people who get the surplus. If all the workers together make a cooperative, then they aren't split between the employers and the employees, because both positions are occupied by every person in the operation. There's no split. How would that work? Take any factory, take any office, take any store, change it as follows. No more board of directors. Don't need it. Here's how we're going to do it. You come to work and you sit around making the decisions. All the decisions that used to be made by the capitalists. Workers become their own board of directors. Or to say the same thing another way, the worker-capitalist division dissolves. If you made all the workers democratically get together and decide how to distribute the wealth they've all together created, they would never give a handful of people more money than they know what to do with, while everybody else is worrying about sending their kid to college because they can't afford it. When you're discussing a new technology that might pollute the air or the water, the decision is made by the major shareholders and the board of directors, a tiny group of people who typically live in gated communities in a lovely leafy residence far away from the factory or the office or the store that pollutes. So they can make the investment in the new technology and reap the profits,
If the workers who live and work and depend on the enterprise made the decisions, they wouldn't do it that often because they're the ones that breathe the air and drink the water. So they'd be much more sensitive to the real cost. Every technological invention justified itself on the grounds that by this new machine, we could get more done with less effort. But when those innovations are put into a capitalist economic system, the people who put the technology in want to make profit out of it. For example, if a machine allows the workers to do twice as much as before, they fire half of the workforce. The remaining half works with the new machine, produces as much as before. The company realizes a fantastic profit because it doesn't have to pay half the workers' wages, which they can keep for themselves. Here's an alternative. Let every worker do half as much work as he or she did before. Let's run the working day 4 hours instead of 8. The workers will have engaged an enormous amount of leisure to pay attention to their own development, to their families, to their communities. If we use technology that way, we would use it to help the mass of people enjoy a better life rather than a small percentage of the people enjoy a greater profit. The problem was never with technology. The problem was with the system that decides how to use that technology.
You're going to have to get rid of the capitalist system where it lives, in the stores, the factories, and the offices.